What if I told you that the Aztec Empire, one of the most sophisticated and powerful civilizations in history, rose to greatness in just a few hundred years, only to be torn apart almost overnight? Their story is one of breathtaking ambition, shocking power, and ultimate tragedy. But buried in their rise and fall lie lessons that still resonate with us today. Picture this: a city built on water, surrounded by canals and majestic temples, filled with a thriving population and a culture rich in art, science, and warfare. The Aztecs dominated Mesoamerica, but as quickly as they rose, they disappeared. What happened? And what can we learn from their incredible journey? Let's uncover the secrets of the Aztec Empire, the lessons it left behind, and how its history still impacts us today. To understand the fall of the Aztecs, we first need to understand their meteoric rise. Their story begins in the early 14th century, with a small group of wandering warriors called the Mexica, who eventually founded Tenochtitlan, a city on an island in Lake Texcoco, today's Mexico City. The Mexica weren't the only tribe in the region, but they were determined, ambitious, and skilled at making alliances and breaking them when necessary. In the beginning, the Mexico were not feared. They were, in fact, a group of exiles. But legend has it that their gods had promised them a home, where they would see an eagle perched on a cactus, holding a snake in its beak. That sign, an omen, was the key. And on that site, Tenochtitlan was born. From their humble beginnings, they forged an empire unlike any other. By the early 1500s, the Aztec Empire controlled vast regions across Mesoamerica, including parts of modern-day Mexico, Guatemala, and beyond. They were masters of agriculture, architecture, and warfare. They built pyramids, temples, and roads that still amaze historians today. But at the heart of it all was their ruthless ambition. The Aztecs weren't just warriors, they were also cunning diplomats. They made alliances through the Triple Alliance with two other city-states, Texcoco and Tlacopan. Together, these three powers dominated the Valley of Mexico, and through tribute and military conquest, they expanded their empire's reach. Now, let's talk about the Aztecs themselves. They were brilliant innovators in so many ways. Their cities were built with meticulous planning. They developed agricultural techniques like chinampas, floating gardens that allowed them to grow food on the lake itself, feeding hundreds of thousands. Their culture was one of vibrant art, poetry, and astronomy. But behind this innovation was a darker side: human sacrifice. The Aztecs believed that the sun god, Huitzilopochtli, required blood to rise each day. And so, they offered the lives of their enemies and their own people in ritual sacrifices. The grand scale of these sacrifices, particularly at the Templo Mayor, would be something that would leave an indelible mark on history. But it wasn't just blood that they needed. They also relied heavily on tribute from conquered peoples. This system of tribute made them rich, but also built resentment. They took gold, food, and precious materials from their subjects, forcing many smaller tribes to pay or face war. This reliance on tribute was one of the seeds of their downfall. But despite all their power, the Aztec Empire had one critical weakness: complacency. They believed that their civilization was invincible, that the gods favored them. But fate had other plans. In 1519, a new force arrived on the shores of the Aztec Empire: Hernán Cortés and his band of Spanish conquistadors. The Aztecs, initially intrigued by the strangers, welcomed them. But Cortés, ever the opportunist, was not interested in friendship. He was there to conquer. Cortés formed alliances with the very people the Aztecs had oppressed. The Tlaxcalans, who had long been at odds with the Aztecs, saw this as their chance for revenge. Together, they marched toward the Aztec capital. But the most shocking moment came when the Aztec emperor, Moctezuma II, greeted Cortés not as an enemy, but as a god. Some historians suggest Moctezuma believed that Cortés was the returning god Quetzalcoatl, a mistake that would cost him everything. Moctezuma's hesitation and reliance on omens weakened his leadership. The Aztecs were divided, confused, and unsure. In the end, Cortés and his army, armed with superior weaponry and aided by tens of thousands of indigenous allies, overthrew the mighty empire in a matter of months. So, what can we learn from the rise and fall of the Aztec Empire? There are plenty of lessons to be drawn from their story, lessons about power, complacency, and the limits of belief. 1. Ambition without foresight. The Aztecs' ambition drove them to greatness. but their desire for ever-expanding power without considering the long-term consequences led to their downfall. They believed their gods were on their side, but they didn't account for the possibility that someone more ruthless would arrive. 2. Complacency and hubris. The Aztecs thought their empire was unbeatable. They ignored the warning signs and failed to adapt quickly when external threats emerged. Leaders must always be adaptable and open-minded to avoid stagnation. 3. The importance of unity. Despite their military might, the Aztecs relied on tribute and forced alliances. When those alliances began to unravel, so did their empire. Cortés exploited the divisions between the Aztecs and their enemies, and that ultimately led to the fall of the empire. In today's world, unity is essential to maintaining strength. 4. The cost of underestimating others. The Aztecs underestimated the Spanish. They viewed them as strange, but not a serious threat. They did not see the potential danger in the Europeans and their new technologies. Underestimating an enemy can be deadly, whether it's in war or in business. So, why should you care about the fall of the Aztec Empire today? It's not just a story about an ancient civilization. It's about the timeless challenges that all powerful people face. How to manage ambition, how to adapt to change, and how to never take your dominance for granted. The Aztecs were brilliant, but in the end, they were undone by their own flaws. Think about your own life. Whether in business, leadership, or personal growth, the Aztec lessons can be powerful. Do you recognize the signs of complacency in your life? Are you adapting to the changing world around you? Or are you holding on to outdated methods? If you found this story as fascinating as I did, make sure to hit that like button, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more deep dives into history. I want to hear from you. What lesson from the Aztecs resonates most with you? How can we avoid making the same mistakes they made? Thank you for joining me on this journey through the rise and fall of the Aztec Empire. Remember, history isn't just something that happened. It's a treasure trove of lessons. Take those lessons with you and keep exploring. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and never stop seeking the truth.